Hello, TGIF. Welcome to Bronx Tales. Everything we say is alleged and our opinion. But you guys, I think I might have figured out something pretty interesting today. I was reading some stuff last night and then I was reading it again this morning on my break and I was like, wait a second. Is this saying what I think it's saying? I'll have to run it by you guys. 37 this morning, felt like 30. One more day of winter left. Oh, it's going to be spring for you guys. That's right. Because we're heading into fall. It's just starting to get hoodie weather. So it's just starting to get like in the 60s, high 60s kind of right now, low 70s, but it's starting to be hoodie weather here soon. And then you guys will be in summer over in Australia when we are in winter. Boo. You know what though? I can't stand the super, super hot heat because it's very humid here. Like you have to like try and like trudge through the air because it's so, hey Pokey, because it's so humid over here. So I don't really like the super hot heat, but I don't really care for the super cold either. I think that's probably how a lot of people are, except for if you're a skier, right? How's your Friday, Pokey? How's your Friday, Christina? I hope everybody's having a fabulous Friday. I know here in the US, it's Labor Day on Monday, so we get a 3-day weekend this weekend that I think, hey, Bunny Murphy. Oh, you're still at work? Hopefully it's almost over for you. Do you get a 3-day weekend, Bunny Murphy? I think most people do. I have some pretty decent stuff for us tonight. I actually wasn't going to go live, but then I thought I might have found something interesting. So I was like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll go live tonight. The power went out at 1:30. So you went fall shopping. I love fall shopping. It's great I went into the dollar store the other day to grab some coffee and they had wrapping paper and stuff out. And I was like, Christmas? What? So soon. We'll give it a few minutes since we were a couple minutes early, but I have some good stuff. We'll see if I can explain it in a way that makes freaking sense to people the first time. I always struggle with explaining things the first time and getting it right. So I'll try and explain it the best I can, but it's pretty interesting. I got a couple of things actually today. Get my notes out. I finally finished all of the ISP documents and reading them. Fall leaves inspire you. I love fall stuff. Hey, Shelly. The only part I don't like about it is when it starts to get dark at like 4:00 in the afternoon. You feel like, the days are super short and you don't have enough time to get everything done. That's the only part I don't like about it. If it would stay light out a little bit longer, I'd be fine with it. Hello, Jeff H. Splain away. I shall try. I'm sure Jeff will let me know if I'm completely off base here. Hello, riding down the rabbit hole. Hey, Lucy. Is it Shelia or Sheila? Shelia? Well, hello, either way. I'm bad with reading names. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Hey, Sid. We'll give it like another minute. Give it another minute. I have something fairly decent today, I think, guys. Although the conversations in chat make this so great. That's what I love. Hey, Susan. I hope everybody's having a great Friday. I'm excited. It's a 3-day weekend this weekend. Shalia. Oh, okay. I see it now. I'm sure you get people that mispronounce it all day, every day, right? Shalia. I like that. So, what we are going to start with is actually we're going to start with Outcast's video. I'm sure everybody's seen it. One second. Okay. Everything just bleeped out on me. Um Black Sox actually sent this to me in an email just to make sure that I had it, and I want to play it. Oh, this is not the one I want. Hold on. Whoops, 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 whoops. There we go. There we go. I'm going to just keep the volume off, but I want to share what Outcast put out there yesterday. Our very own subscriber Black Sox sent it to me. So yes, if you are in here and you do not subscribe to Outcast, please head over there. He does really late at night, well late at night for me. Really late at night digs into like audios and things like that. So if you're up late, definitely check him out, and then he will post the next day, he will post the little important clips from the deep dive digs that he does on his late night lives. I wish I could catch more of his lives because I love the live digs, but I have to go to sleep early because I have to get up early, so I don't always get to make Outcast. But so we're going to play this video from Outcast, and if you pay attention to the bottom left-ish of the screen, you're gonna see somebody walk by. Now, this is a video from the Linda Lane footage, and this is, I believe, the time is 5:20 to 5:22. You are going to see a figure walk by. You're only going to see half of their body, but if you look at the figure and you look at the height and you look at the legs and you look at what they're wearing, they might appear to look similar to somebody you've seen before on another body cam video. Let's play it and see what we come up with. I took the sound off just so we could concentrate on the visual. He's gonna appear here shortly. I do believe it's a male. Suspect one. Suspect one. Here it comes. Here they come. Here they come. Oh, okay. So he's got it on there. Who got them skinny legs, Hunter? Now, of course, because it's black and white, it's hard to see colors or anything. And here is suspect two. If you look at Hunter's legs, I'm sure there's tons of tall, thin males in the area. But if you look at Hunter's legs, they look really, really similar to this guy. I also believe the color of the hoodie would be similar to the color of hoodie Hunter is seen in the next day. Now, again, this is at 5:20 to 5:22. I'm playing it again just in case anybody missed it. Obviously, we can't see very much of them, but they look to be about Hunter's height and have Hunter's leg shape. And it looks to me the color of sweatshirt could be similar. I'm going to pause it when he pauses it as well. That is, let me see if I can get it bigger. There we go. It's a little bit better. If you can see his sweatshirt, it's not a white sweatshirt, right? It's not a black sweatshirt. And we know this is in black and white. That would be consistent with a sweatshirt, but like a lighter colored sweatshirt. So maybe like the light blue one that he has on the next day. It could be. I do think that leg shape, though, is really, really similar. And again, this is at 5:20 in the morning, walking by Linda Lane. Interesting. I find it interesting. And then what I want to do is move over to show you guys another thing that I was emailed. Whoops. That I was emailed. And it goes right into what I wanted to tell you guys that I think I found. So let me share this one. Now, a person by the name of A. Ringelberg sent me an email. I have no idea who that ties to as far as the names on YouTube, but I appreciated it. And what they wanted me to look at was how interesting it was that we can see when Dylan is making her statement to, she's technically just talking to Jack and letting Jack know what she saw or what happened, but she is very, very aware of where the officers are at. And you can tell when the officer starts to walk up to her, she kind of gets more loud and more animated. Like she wants the officer to hear her. She even thinks the officer is walking up to her at one point while she's trying to explain it to Jack. And she's so aware of where the officer is and what he's doing that she stops in the middle of her story. And as she knows he's still in earshot, she gets more animated. And then we even go a little bit further. And in her actual statement on body cam to officers, she actually misspeaks. I don't know if she misspeaks because she's so concentrated on what story she needs to tell and, you know, getting the facts of her story out correctly to the officer, or if she's just generally mishearing or misspeaking. But she says, she's talking to the officer and he's asking her about the stairs. And it's when she says, "No, Kaylee." But he's talking about the stairs, and she interjects the name Kaylee, and I don't know if she was just so concentrated on her story that that's why she said the name Kaylee again. You know, if it's a made up story, you could go that route, that she's really just concentrated on getting her story right rather than actually hearing what the officer is saying to her. So I want to play that a little bit.
They tell you anything? They much less about like we were in the main room.
This is one of the.
Pretty much they were in the main room. I heard the dancing and laughing. Kaylee went upstairs and she screamed because someone's in the room. She ran downstairs, and I kept calling her name and she wouldn't answer. And then I saw the guy. I actually locked the door and I ran downstairs. We don't know what's going on.
Can you come here with me, please?
She just is really animated there, but specifically because I think the officer is there. And then we'll go to the part where she starts telling her story, but
Dr. Box, there were many failed attempts to fix my teeth. I retouched all my way.
You did go in there.
Yeah, and that's when you told us you need to call the closet.
When? Do you mind just waiting over there for me, please? Okay. When? Now, I overheard you talking about last night.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to. The more we know right now, the better. We start this process.
Yeah.
Somebody will probably be revisiting this interview with you very soon.
You're right,
Okay,
Christina.
so you're probably going to have to retell the story quite a bit.
That's fine.
All right. What do you remember seeing? What started?
I remember I was in my room and I was trying to go to bed and I heard Kaylee, who ex-girlfriend who has a dog in her room.
Real fast. Which one is your room?
Kaylee.
Which one is your room?
Oh,
What room are you in?
See right there? It's like she's so concentrated on telling the events of her story or her rehearsed story, possibly, in our opinion or my opinion, that she's not even listening to the questions he's asking her. She's just trying to go in order with her story. That when he asks her a question, she just kind of repeats what she just said. She's not even paying attention to what he's asking her.
Remember seeing? What started?
I remember I was in my room and I was trying to go to bed and I heard Kaylee, who ex-girlfriend who has a dog in her room.
Real fast. Which one is your room?
Kaylee.
Which one is your room?
Oh,
What room are you in?
I suppose she could have just misheard him. But yeah, Black Sox wanted me to share this, as when he listened to it, he really got the sense that she was telling a rehearsed story and making sure she, got her story right, rather than listening and having a conversation about what happened, trying to explain it. She's really just trying to remember a dang story. So that's what I wanted to share with that. Now, that leads me into what I wanted to share with you guys that I think I stumbled upon today. So we already know Dylan's story, right? We know she thought who she heard was Murphy go up the stairs with Kaylee, who she thinks is Kaylee. And then Kaylee screams, or who she thinks is Kaylee screams and says, "There's somebody here," runs down the stairs and goes on to the second floor bathroom. Now, I've explained before how I believe, because Murphy stays upstairs and continues to bark. And I believe there's obviously a perpetrator up there because somebody else sees it and runs downstairs, right? Whether it's Xana or Kaylee, it doesn't really matter to the actual story of where I think the perps are. So she only says she hears one person come down the stairs and go into the second floor bathroom, which leaves a perpetrator still up on the third floor. And at the same time as that, another perpetrator on the second floor says, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," right? So we've got a perp on the third floor. At the same time, we have a perp talking on the second floor. So we've got two perps in the house, right? Well, I think we might have three. And I'll tell you why. Let me share this. That is not what I wanted to share. I think we have three perpetrators because I went back over and I read I read Bethany's statement again. The one that was from a while ago that we got within the Moscow Police Department reports. And in her statements, she says at around 4 or 4:20, which we know this is in between that time, Bethany heard what she thought was a firework and saw a spark on the ground from the crack underneath her door. Bethany then heard Murphy start barking. Well, we know Murphy started barking on the third floor when him and whoever went up there and saw somebody on the third floor. So we've got a perpetrator on the third floor. We've got somebody at the same time on the second floor saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help." But we have somebody on the first floor causing something to flash underneath Dylan's door. And then we hear Murphy bark. So we've got a perpetrator on the first floor at the same time as on the third floor, at the same time as on the second floor. I think we've got three perpetrators in the house at the same time. Hi, Karen. Hi, Witchy. Hi, Taratha. Hi, Wakinian Tanka. Hi, Liv. Hello, everybody that just joined in. I really do think that this explains, I think Murphy starting to bark, I believe, is the catalyst here, right? Because Dylan hears it, Bethany hears it. But when Murphy starts barking is immediately after somebody goes upstairs, sees somebody, screams and yells, someone's here, and runs down to the second floor. Oh, thank you, Bianca. We've got a gifted membership. Thank you. Thank you. That's amazing. Happy Friday. Yeah, I like that. I don't know, Susan. That is just crazy. All this discovery coming out now and Brian takes a plea. Why? There's got to be a reason. I really do feel like there's got to be a reason. So yeah, Murphy barking is the catalyst here. We've got to pay attention to what is going on immediately before Murphy barks. Immediately before Murphy barks is Kaylee or Xana, one of the two, goes upstairs and sees somebody. Murphy immediately starts barking. Right before that, Bethany sees the flash underneath her door. Murphy immediately starts barking, is what she's hearing. That's what she's hearing, and that's what she's seeing. So at the same time, we've got a perp on the third floor. Dylan never hears but one person come down the stairs, not two, just one. That leaves a perpetrator on the third floor. And then when she hears the person come down, she hears a male voice on the second floor speaking. It's okay, I'm here to help. While Murphy's barking. Bethany hears a boom and sees a flash, and then Murphy starts barking. There's got to be a person on the first floor as well. That to me tells us Kaylee or Xana sees a person on the third floor. Dylan hears a person on the second floor. Bethany sees a flash, which would be a perp on the first floor. We've got 3 people in the house at the same time. Something set it off. And I believe that these perpetrators were already in the house. They didn't just come in at this time. They were already in there. They were waiting. And when somebody accidentally goes upstairs and sees the perpetrator and screams and run down the stairs, that was the cue for the other perpetrators to come out. Come out, game on. Let's go. Let's get the show on. Let's do this. And that's when everything starts. And I believe that time is between I think it starts at 4:17. When we hear Murphy start barking, I think that's when it starts. But it lasts till after 4:27. So still that 420 car, I don't believe is any of these perpetrators. It might be the getaway car. It might be the getaway car, right? And they got spooked and drove off without anybody in it. Who knows? But I really do feel that there is 3 people in the house at the same time. Murphy starting to bark at the perpetrator on the third floor. And whoever ran up to the third floor said somebody's here and screamed and ran back down, probably Xana, is what set everything in motion. Now, all the perpetrators in the house knew collectively, let's go. We got to get this done now because somebody's seen us. The dog is barking. And I think that flash on the first floor was to try and lure anybody out of a bedroom that's on the first floor. I think that's what that flash was for. So yeah, this explains to me, if you put it in chronological order, there's 3 people in this house, 1 on each floor, which would make sense, which I thought was pretty interesting. And speaking of interesting, I was reading the ISP documents today, and I read of something very, very interesting that I have never seen in my life. There is an ISP document. It's very, very short. I don't even need to share it to tell us that, hello, Top. Good to see you. Hi, Angel Mom from PA. What parts of PA? Are you close to the Koberger family? Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Where at in PA? It does. Yeah, it does. Oh, thank you, Sid. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I was reading an ISP report today, and guess what the heck I read? Okay, so the door, we had the front door open from it at the very least 8 to 11 in the morning because the neighbor saw it, right? And we have the back door open because one of the perps went out the back door. So we've got two doors open, and that caused something to happen with the heat. And the heat wasn't working anymore. And there's a report in there that says, the heat wasn't working. It was at 40 degrees in the house, which how did the roommates not feel that it was 40 degrees in the house? I don't know. But they had to set up heaters, like space heaters throughout the house to make sure the pipes didn't freeze. So when they called the HVAC guy over, which we saw the truck in the driveway, the HVAC guy came over. This was well after the bodies had been removed. So the HVAC guy comes in, and the HVAC guy only stays on the first floor. He never goes to the second floor or the third floor. So in a nutshell, he basically doesn't see anything. But did you guys know that they made him, the HVAC guy, sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, when he was only on the first floor and technically didn't see anything? I have never heard of people coming in the house to, do whatever they have to do, the HVAC guy or a plumber or whatever it is. I have never heard of them needing to sign an NDA. I mean, at this point, technically, they really didn't even know how big this crime was going to get because it had just happened, right? Why would almost like they knew how big it was going to get. But why would you need the HVAC guy to sign a non-disclosure agreement? That is so strange. I looked it up too. I did some searching today on both ChatGPT, on Google, on anything I could find, Reddit. And I was asking it, like, is that normal? I know it's not normal, but I wanted to see what would come up. And everything I looked up was like, no, that's not normal. They don't usually have other professionals that need to come in the house for whatever reason. They don't have them sign anything. It's just really word of mouth, a verbal agreement between two people, an officer saying, hey, this is an investigation. Please don't say anything until we're done with our investigation. That's what it said. Usually it's just a verbal agreement. We're investigating a crime here. Please don't, touch this or whatever. Hi, USA Kiwi. Please don't touch this. Please don't go in this room. Please, whatever. And please don't say anything. Never have I ever heard of somebody needing to sign an NDA over a crime that just happened. Strange stuff. Oh, interesting. Hello, Charlie's Angel. I'm not sure that's a good question. If Kaylee was the one who ran up the stairs and ran back down, why didn't she call 911 instead of just standing in the bathroom crying? And if it was Xana, same thing. Why wouldn't they call 911? I feel like even the victims didn't try and call 911. At least one of them we know had the opportunity to. Right? Instead of running into if it was Anna, instead of running into the second floor bathroom, she could have ran into her room and grabbed her phone. Or if she had it in her hand anyways, right? Because she just ordered DoorDash or whatever. Why wouldn't they call 911 after seeing what they just saw? I don't understand that either. We know at least one person. I thought about that too, Witchy. Witchy says, why didn't she run out of the house instead of trapping themselves in a bedroom? Thank you, Carol. I thought the exact same thing. Thank you so much, Carol. We appreciate that so much. If somebody came in the back slider and left it open, you would think if it was Xana and she was running back down the stairs and going, running to go into her room, she would see the back slider and I would think she would just go out the back slider. I'm going to tell you, I don't think they came in the back slider, and I don't think Xana thought to go out the back slider because that door was not open then. I don't think that they came in the back door. I think one person left out the back slider and left it open then. But I don't think Xana would run down the stairs and think to go out the back slider because it wasn't even open. I think the perps came in a completely different way, and I think that they came in earlier than everybody thinks. I think it was 3, at least 3 that I can come up with or that I can read in these reports, and it sounds like 3 to me. But I don't think they came in the back slider, because if they were all out in the living room still from 4:00 to 4:20 or whatever it was, 4:17 is when it sounds like most stuff is popping off at about 4:17, because that's when Murphy starts barking. So I don't think the perps came in the back slider, unless they came in the back slider at 1:00 in the morning when nobody was home and each one took a room and hid in it, right? Somebody on the 3rd floor, somebody on the 2nd floor, somebody on the 1st floor. Yeah, I do too, USA Kiwi. Kiwi says, I think it was an hour earlier too. Some of the timestamps on the docs have PST after them and others don't. Interesting. Very interesting. It is so sus, right, Carol? Let's see. I thought about that too, Susan. Like maybe it was Xana, and Xana thought like, get to Ethan, get to the boy in the house or the guy in the house that can overpower me, anybody else, and be protective of me. I think that too. I just wish everybody would have thought to jump and run and go out, not into a room. Oh, interesting thought, Christina. Christina says, I think the kid at the grub truck slipped her something to knock her out. He made a sleepy emotion like he was putting her to sleep and popped something into her mouth. Interesting. Because I wondered if they were incapacitated in some way. I think most people wondered that at some point. Exactly, Carol. We can't even confirm Xana's the one who got the food from the porch. And I thought that too. A thought went through my brain, and I haven't shared it at all because it's very, very speculative, and I try not to get super deep into speculations. Obviously, it can invoke awesome conversation if we do that, and I do enjoy doing that with you guys, but I hate technically making videos that are really, really big just on speculation. I like to stick with more facts and only go a little bit into speculation. So I haven't shared this before, but I thought if the perps were in there much earlier than we thought, and everybody's up in the living room and, dancing with their dog and talking and everything else, and nobody goes to bed until after 4:00, when all this pops off is when somebody runs upstairs immediately after Murphy gets up there. I mean, like steps behind, right? And that's when a perpetrator is seen. My thoughts have been, what if the perpetrators were in there much earlier and nobody saw or heard from Xana or Ethan that came in the house at any point in time because they were already unalived earlier? And maybe while waiting, somebody just used their phone and ordered some food to get there to make it look like they were still alive, but they weren't. And then when they were noticed and Murphy starts barking and all of that, then they all kind of just came out of the woodwork like, it's time. We got to do this now. Everybody knows we're here now. Boogeyman hiding under the bed. That is so funny that you called me Logie. That's what everybody called me growing up. That is so funny. I mean, it fits. It's just, it's very speculative, but I always wondered that. Did somebody use maybe Xana's phone? Obviously, if it was Xana running up the stairs, screaming somebody's here and running back down and going into the second floor bathroom and crying, she would have been caught off guard. If she had her phone, it probably still would have been open. So how easy would it be for a perpetrator to use whatever app is the first one to press on or whatever Xana was in? Maybe she was about to order food. Maybe she did order food, but it didn't come till after she was already unalived. I don't know, but the timeline could fit with somebody already being there and unaliving them and then just going to hide and waiting for everybody else to come home. And in that case, obviously, it's not a random perp. The perps knew them, right? They knew what they were doing. They knew the layout of the house. They knew who lived there. They knew their schedule. They knew what they drove. They had a lot of intel. So it was easier for them to get away with it and know. You think it was Kaylee that did that? I just don't understand then how Kaylee got from the second floor back up to the third floor in the bed. That's the only thing that stops me from thinking that. Dylan started calling them at 4:22. And then never forget the foundation in the bathtub. That's what she commented on TikTok at 4:12. Interesting. Like I knew that, but it's the little things like that you forget sometimes, I knew she said that. I'm just trying to see how that would fit in any way other than her actually being alive then. Whoop, sorry. Sorry, Pokey. Clicked on that text on accident. The Chapin Explorer pulls into the 1122 parking lot and cuts the engine at 4:29. Huh. At 4:29. Interesting. I'm going to go back and look because I have another thought. I just don't want to share it yet because it's not even a full thought yet. Do we really know that was even Xana on TikTok? Right. It's kind of a random statement. Never forget about the foundation in the bathroom. I don't know. That's a weird. Hi, iRock. You're making steak. Bronx would be up your behind right now if he knew you were making steak. Right. Yeah. I'm questioning the vehicle now. So you guys are saying that the Chapin vehicle, that's the Chapin vehicle that pulls up at 4:29. You think that's their Explorer then? The one that sounds real rumbly when it pulls up at 4:29? You guys think that's Chapin? Interesting. Yeah, I remember Pav talking about that, but I wasn't sure. So I guess I could show you. Let me pull it up. In the body cam, I saw another vehicle back there that I thought could pass as the vehicle pulling in at 4:29 as well. And I'll show you which one that is. There we go. And it's right here, actually. I thought it was this maroon Tahoe. Either this maroon Tahoe or this old 1999 Jimmy or Blazer or whatever it is, but I really thought it was this Tahoe. I thought the Tahoe was the one that pulled in at 4:29 and makes that rumbling sound. We can go look at that actually again. Let me see if I have it quickly. All right, let me get to it. Let's see what it sounds like again. I don't want to use Gray Hughes's. Okay, we'll use Outcasts.
Your own website by saying, this is what I want. With Wix, you can.
And we're going to go to 429, baby. Wah, 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 wah. I don't know. That looks like it could be a Tahoe to me. That like 2002-ish Tahoe back there. Whoops. I'm gonna watch it one more time. One more time. Mm, I don't know. It really could be. So after 4:30, am I correct in saying there is no other camera in this area? Like it doesn't ever pick back up, right? Like up until 4:30 is all we have, correct? From this view, from 1112, right? We don't have any more after that. Am I correct? Hi, Fizzy. Because if I'm correct in saying that, I would really assume that they have video of it, right? We just don't see it and they're not going to show us. They're going to pretend like that's all we have because after that would be when somebody would come out of the house probably on foot and walking, and obviously they don't want us to know who that would be. But it could be them leaving at the 5:20 mark that we just watched when I first started the live. Who knows? I just think it's interesting and convenient for them to have the video not work anymore at 4:30. But the thing is here, Murphy's still barking. So to me, that says there's still danger in the house. And Murphy knows it. Murphy sees it and Murphy is alerting to it. I wouldn't trust that danger had left until after Murphy stops barking, which would be what, 5 o'clock or so? Let's see what the chat is saying. Oh, okay. Why would the camera just stop recording? I think they tried to get away with saying something along the lines of it was switching over, it was doing some sort of switch over to record, it was trying to make room for more recordings, or I don't know. I don't know what the lie ended up being, but it's obvious that it's convenient that it just stopped working. I don't believe that for a bit. I think that at least one of them leaves on foot. We know that, right? The front door was left open and we've got a bloody glove at the very end of the driveway in the front. Like that only says that a person left out the front, probably on foot. That's what it says to me anyway. So it would make sense if it stopped working at 4:30 and we can't see any cars leave, we can't see any people walk away. That's why they had to have the video stop working at 4:30, because then we'd all know the truth. Oh yeah, that's right, Witchy. Linda Lane cameras reboot daily between 3:35 and 4 something supposedly. Yep, USA Kiwi. One of the detectives had possession of the camera and SD card from 1112 King Road. He could have messed with the footage. Well, I'm pretty sure it's very clear that a lot of this footage is edited, right? But it just comes down to who edited the footage. Was it an officer or somebody else? I don't know. And I don't know if some of the people that just came in here heard me say that when the HVAC people came to fix the heat in the house, since both doors were left open all night or for 8 hours or 9 hours, the HVAC people came into the house to fix the heat, and the ISP officers made the HVAC person sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and that HVAC person never left the first floor. So technically didn't even see anything. But they made him sign an NDA, which is unheard of. Unheard of. I think it's interesting that from the very, very get go of this case, if you listen to the officer's language, they're saying from the jump, it's only one person. They have no idea who it was, who did it. Well, they might have, obviously. But if we go from the view of them not having any idea and just starting an honest investigation, the way they speak is telling us there's one perpetrator. They don't, in that moment, if this wasn't, this was all honest and truthful, they wouldn't know if it was 10 people, if it was the roommate, if it was the next door neighbors, if it, they didn't know if it was 1 or 10 people, but the way they talk is if it was only one person. So from the jump, they were set on one person being a perpetrator, set on them scrapes from the crime, and set on them driving a white car. If you didn't have cuts or scrapes, if you didn't drive a white car, and if you were with another person that night, you were automatically not the perpetrator. And it was never looked into, any of those people. Right? That is weird. Fix the heat just to demolish the house. Weird. You would think just shut everything off. I mean, at that point, what do you need to keep the heat on for? Or, for what? Technically, you said your investigation was pretty much done, right? Well, come to find out, no, at that point, they had still left the beds, the mattresses, the nightstands, and a crap ton of evidence was still in there up until January 6th. January 6th is when they finally took out the mattresses, the blankets that covered the victims, the nightstands, the pillows that they were on, all of that stuff stayed in the house until January 6th. They never even collected it and put it into evidence. Why would that not be one of the first things you put into evidence? A blanket covering the victim that the perpetrator had to have touched to cover them back up? Stop. That's awful. Oh, okay, Jeff. Jeff says the owner of the Linda Lane camera told me that he had the 1320 camera on a Christmas light timer because it kept disconnecting from the Wi-Fi. Interesting. They did. USA Kiwi says, I heard they shut the heat off and used small heaters in the house. That is true. So it wasn't because the heat was shut off. It's because the heat was broken from both of the doors being left open all night long. And they had to call the HVAC person in to fix it. And when he came in, they made him sign an NDA when he came in. And then they fixed it and didn't necessarily have to use the heaters anymore. They did use heaters though. Yeah, you're right, Liv. That car sounds like an older model exhaust. Newer vehicles still are loud but okay. So it sounds like an older model exhaust. Newer vehicles have it and are loud, but the sound is cleaner for the exhaust and not as much rumble on newer vehicles, but on older vehicles, they rumble more like that. Got it. I think it's possible that, yeah, the doors might have been left open to possibly hide the smell. Or sometimes people will either turn the heat up really high or turn the heat down really low because it messes up the decomposition and the timing of the decomposition. So it would be harder to know when the person actually passed away. If it's super, super hot, it speeds up decomposition. And if it's super, super low, like leaving the doors open, it slows it down. But to also hide the smell. Yeah. Because all of that red fluid. So I mentioned, one second, I got to sniff. So I mentioned in my pre-recorded video yesterday that one of their neighbors called the police department and told one of the officers at Moscow that his uncle or something used to work for the ATF. So he put on his family member's old ATF hat and old ATF jacket and walked into the house and said that he saw a blood trail from the bedroom to the bathroom. No clue if this is true or not. I just found it interesting because at the very top of this report, it says, I believe the caller to be drunk. And I was like, well, is the officer just saying they're drunk to discredit the caller? Or were they actually drunk? Did they not actually go in there? I don't know. I just found it interesting that they said there was a blood trail from a bedroom to a bathroom, and we know that there was a latent footprint found. So is it possible that at one point there was a blood trail from the bedroom to the bathroom and it was then cleaned up? And he's actually telling the truth. I don't know. I do not know. Oh, did you guys hear in my video yesterday, my pre-recorded, that I had read a report, and in the report it stated one of the students at WSU that was in class with Brian said he was actually studying burglary, but a violent sex type of burglary, right? That's what he was studying. So that would make sense as to why he would have those violent sex type Google searches in his phone. To me, that explained that away like that. I was like, oh, no wonder he had those in his phone. Because for a minute, I was like, why would he be Googling that? Like, why would he be looking up that type of stuff? That is a little bit strange. But it's because he was literally studying SEX, violent burglaries. Hello, Wolf Angel. I don't know if Dylan and Bethany went to the hotel at any, like, if they were there the night before, if they already had one, if it was all planned, that type of thing. I have no idea about that. I do know that they were purchased hotel rooms by the police department that night. Pretty much everybody got a hotel room. So I don't know if it was that hotel room or a different one. I don't know. The ATF, Carol, the ATF guy, the guy who put on the ATF hat and jacket, he went in there as they were removing the bodies, he said, like right after removing the bodies, but like as they were doing it, he walked in there and acted like an ATF agent. So he said, yeah, the police saw him. He just acted like he was an ATF agent, he said, but he saw a blood trail. That's the only thing he saw was the blood trail from the bedroom to the bathroom. And then he left and walked out. Like he just wanted to see if he could pull it off. That was his goal, really. Um, I don't know. So yeah, that was the stuff that I had today. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the court hearing yesterday. So, they had this court hearing yesterday deciding whether they can or cannot release any more crime scene photos. And if so, can they just release crime scene photos that don't have anything to do with Maddie or Ethan and their rooms and blah, blah, blah. And it was like a back and forth type of deal. And first I want to say, didn't the Gonsalves family come out and say they don't want any crime scene photos released, that is not for the public's eye, that those are for them and nobody else has earned the right to see that and blah, blah, blah. And Steve was kind of pissy about the possibility of them being released. So I thought it was interesting that he didn't jump on the bandwagon for this whole court case with Maddie's mom about having them released or not released. I don't know, Fizzy. That's what I was wondering. Like, do we think that this report was legit or was the guy actually just drunk telling a story? I don't know. I don't know why ATF would be there, but also I wouldn't know why the marshals would be in there with cowboy hats on either. So to me, it was believable, but I don't know if it's true. Whoops. So my question was, how come the Gonsalves family didn't jump on this bandwagon of this latest court case with either having the pictures released or not released? I thought that was odd because, we hear Steve before saying, don't make me do it. Don't make me do everything, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought maybe he asked Maddie's mom to do this. I don't know, because I'm surprised he is not on it, I guess, basically. Anyways, what the court case was about was, the pictures being released. And one of the lawyers said, well, technically, the red fluid that came out of their bodies still belonged to the victims. So technically, it's an invasion of privacy and blah, blah, blah. Like the public doesn't deserve to see them and legally shouldn't be allowed to see them because technically the red fluid belongs to the victims and we would need their consent to release photos of their red fluid. Basically, no pictures, saying no pictures should be released. But I too also found that interesting because you cannot say that for the victims and then turn around and do the exact opposite to Bryan Kohberger. You can't say that their red fluid is theirs and belongs to them even after they're deceased, so we don't have the right to see it, but then turn around and do all this IgG DNA stuff on Bryan Kohberger that he didn't consent to either. They can't have it both ways. That really drove me nuts when I heard that. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. So they're literally in court arguing a fact that they literally did to Bryan Kohberger the opposite to him just 3 years ago. But now you want to argue the same basic principle, but the opposite way for the victims? I don't get it. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't do both. Right. You would think that Writing Down the Rabbit Hole says, but they can show Nicole Simpson's red body fluid all over the crime scene and Ron Goldman too, and John Bonet, and she's a child, right? I say the only thing I can say to that is those crimes were back in the 90s, and we don't have, I guess back then I should say, they didn't have as much red tape as we have now. You know what I mean? Like, you can't even sign into your own email address without signing 8 documents and giving a pinch of your own blood. Like, there's so much red tape for everything now. So I think maybe the timing and the decades have something to do with that. But I hear what you're saying. Like, it shouldn't be that way. Hello, Gary. Welcome, welcome. Well, it's funny you say that, Liv. Liv says, I think Bryan could have been doing his own personal investigation in this, and I think that's possible. I was watching a channel either yesterday or the day before, and somebody asked the creator, how come Bryan Kohberger Googled or looked up the crime before the police were even aware? That before 911 had been called, they said that Bryan Kohberger looked up the crime, and the creator, who is kind of on our side, right, thinking that Bryan Kohberger got railroaded, the creator was like, I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, he's a student and a criminology student, and he might have been interested in it. I'm like, he didn't. How come you're trying to explain why Bryan Kohberger did that when he didn't even do that action? Bryan Kohberger did not look up this crime until the 16th, and that came from law enforcement. Law enforcement told us that Bryan Kohberger did not look up the crime until the 16th, and that was the first time he looked it up. So he didn't look up the crime. Jeff says, I wanted to go and see where the crime happened for so long, and it seems weird to me that Bryan didn't go over there once, except for maybe that morning around 9:30 or so. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I don't know. I thought he went and used the ATM that morning. You know what I think of? Here's what I think of. I live in a town that is not super, super duper huge, like not millions of people, but a couple 100,000, right? And there are crimes that happen in my town that I didn't even hear of, that I didn't hear of till weeks and weeks later or months and months later. So even though he's close and in criminology, maybe he didn't know, maybe he didn't pay attention, or maybe he did hear it for the first time on the 15th. I mean, we don't hear everything, I guess. I know he's in criminology and I know it was probably all over the news, so he probably should have known about it. But even though I live in a fairly decent sized town, I don't hear of all the crimes that go on here. There was a crime of a female and her 2 kids being unalived and in my town, and I didn't know that until like a year later. And then 2 years later, they ended up arresting the kid's dad, and he's the one who did it. I didn't have a clue about it, and I'm into true crime. Like, I've been into true crime since I was 9 years old. So, I don't know. Maybe he just didn't hear about it until the 15th. Who knows? Hello, Bo. I do want to know how all of the students knew before police even got there, because I thought when they called 911, that's the exact moment that Hunter sees it and finds out. And on the 911 call, we can hear, go, 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 get out, call 911. So how would anybody else know before the 911 call if up until then they supposedly just thought somebody was unconscious, that Xana was unconscious and drank too much? How would other college kids in the area start to know what happened before that if you supposedly, Dylan and Bethany, didn't know? It doesn't make sense. They knew. They knew, and they knew about Kaylee and Maddie too. They knew. Who wiped up the latent print outside of Bethany's door? Who? Yeah, I did hear that, Wolf Angel, that Brian wasn't even at the crime scene the next day, that he went to the bank. And I thought that that was in the report as well, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, Sherlock. Yep, exactly. There's only 2 people. So, Sherlock, I don't think you were here earlier, and I'll explain it really quick if I can. I'm pretty sure I figured out that there's 3 perps in the house at the same time. And I figured that out from Bethany's statement that she gave Moscow Police Department in the Moscow reports. It says Bethany heard the boom and saw the flash under her door, and immediately after that is when she heard Murphy start barking. Well, Murphy didn't start barking until Dylan says, who she thought was Kaylee, goes up to the 3rd floor, sees a perpetrator. When she goes up there with Murphy starts barking. Kaylee supposedly screams, runs down the stairs saying someone's here, goes into the 2nd floor bathroom. So that leaves a perp on the 3rd floor still, because Murphy and the perp didn't come down. Only Kaylee did. Goes into the 2nd floor bathroom, and a male says, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." So at that time, we've got somebody on the 3rd floor, somebody on the 2nd floor. But Bethany says she heard Murphy start barking immediately after that flash. So if Murphy starts barking with the perp on the 3rd floor, we've got somebody on the 2nd floor. That means whoever's making the flash is on the 1st floor. We've got 3 people. We've got 3 people. So that's what I think. We've got 3 people at the same time. One second. Let me close this door real quick. Okay. Also, failing to disclose the state of the descendants to the 911 operator, all 3 callers, is extremely suspicious. Yep, I agree. I don't know if okay, so in a document as well, Dylan states that when she saw Xana, she stopped for a minute and looked Well, then you would have seen all that red fluid, honey. It can't be both ways. You can't think that she's passed out and unconscious from drinking and see all that blood around her. It doesn't go both ways. Like, you cannot, if you saw her, you saw that red fluid. Fizzy says, it baffles me that someone that drives so horribly that they get pulled over so much all the time, all of a sudden knows how to drive like he's a stuntman for Tokyo Drift. Come on now. No kidding. I just don't think it's possible for that white car at 420 to be any of the perps that committed the crime. It could have been a getaway driver that got spooked and took off without him. But as far as anybody who actually unalived anybody, in my opinion, cannot be part of that white car that's speeding away. It just can't. The time doesn't work. The time doesn't work by going off of both Dylan and Bethany's own statements, because the stuff doesn't even start until 4:17. It doesn't start until Murphy starts barking, because that's when supposedly Kaylee saw the perpetrator on the 3rd floor, screamed, ran back down, and said somebody's here. That's when Murphy starts barking. That's when it all kicks off, which is at 4:17, right? Well, we'll check. I have the thing up right here. Let's see what exact time Murphy starts barking.
What if you could
Of
do
course,
all
there's
your
a
SEO
freaking ad.
in one tab?
Dang you.
Meet SEMrush, a tool.
Whoa, wait a second. I thought I just heard that same truck real quick. One second. I thought I heard the grumble of a vehicle. I just want to see when Murphy starts barking for sure, because that's when the perp on the 3rd floor is seen for the first time. Or 17. Interesting. That's interesting. I just thought of something, but I'm not going to share it yet because I don't have the whole thought there yet. Well, I wondered that too, Carol. So Carol says, I heard Hunter had red fluid on him from when he checked Xana. How could she still be bleeding out? More sus and more sus. Initially, I thought I could make sense of why he would get red fluid on him, right? But then I thought they said it was dried. I thought for some reason, they said it was dried. Now, I'm not sure if that was the red fluid on Maddie's face or Xana's, but I thought they said the red fluid was dried, unless he tried to take her pulse like on her hand, on her wrist or whatever. I'm not sure. Jeff says in the documents around 2 p.m. on 11/13, Bethany makes mention of the notion that they wondered if they were being pranked. And I haven't really heard any pro-burgers talking about that. And I actually call your bluff on that, because on one of my very initial videos, my pre-recordeds, I did mention that actually. I mentioned wondering, just playing devil's advocate, wondering if maybe they thought it was a prank and it was originally supposed to be a prank, but then turned bad really fast. I don't believe that, but it was something that I did say in a video, that it could have been a prank gone wrong. I did say that, but you might not have been here back then, because that was one of my very first videos. Yeah, I'm questioning the stuff in Dylan's room that had red fluid on it. I don't know. Fizzy talked about pranking too. Yeah. I don't know if Jack D went to any of the court hearings. I'm not sure. I thought it was just immediate family that was allowed to be there, as to not fill up the whole thing with, loved ones. I don't know. The vampires did it. I do think it's strange that in Vampire Diaries that they were watching, it has a lot of similar stuff in there that is what happened that night or morning, I guess. Yeah. Well, I think that's an interesting thought, Fizzy. Fizzy says, I'm still thinking she didn't actually see the suspect except from the back. And I wonder that too. And the reason I wonder that is because in a Moscow Police Department document, it says Dylan knew the person was white because she could see the skin through the eye holes of the mask. Well, if it was a balaclava, those don't have eye holes. Those have this part open right here, right? So they wouldn't have holes, and it specifically says eye holes of the mask. But then in another report from ISP, the mask is described as a balaclava. The first one was described as a ski mask, the one we would think of with the holes. So I'm wondering, because the mask can't even be described correctly, if she actually did see them. Because in one of the reports where they have the balaclava on, it's said something about eyebrows. But in the ski mask, with the one with the holes report, it talks about having a big nose, or vice versa. I think it's vice versa. Anyways, at one point she's describing a big nose. So you can see that, right? Then that would be a balaclava. But if you're seeing eyebrows and no nose through the holes of a ski mask, that's a ski mask and not a balaclava. So we don't even have the correct mask. We don't even know. And I would think, if that's what you're looking at because you see them and look them in the eye, that you would know what type of mask they have on. And you can't tell me it was dark in there, because we know it wasn't. That's an interesting thought, actually. Taratha says, Dylan had on the mask. She's talking about herself, in my opinion. Honestly, what if she was tripping on acid or shrooms or something, and what she was hearing on the TV is what she thought was real life, but there was actually something happening in real life, but she's so tripped out, she can't decipher what is what's real life and what's on the TV. And so it's just all mixed together and convoluted. I thought about that. That's interesting. You bring up the Darlie Routier case as well. In every case where the person tries to say someone else did it, it's always a guy in a black mask. Isn't that the truth? My goodness. That is literally the truth. Um Oh, that sucks, Jeff. I don't like when people are mean, whether you're a pro burger or a guilter. I don't think people need to be mean. I think that we need to just pick each other's brains. I think that's really cool that we can all come together. I like when Jeff is here. I mean, we all know Jeff is a guilter, but he adds good insight and it sparks good conversation and, you know, yeah, I just don't understand the whole well, and the other thing that I'm pretty sure we're all aware of now is that Dylan basically says in her first report that she's talking about how they got in or possibly got in or out through the third floor. It didn't even come across her mind they would have entered through the back slider because they were all out there and would have seen and would have known. I honestly don't think that back slider was opened until the one perpetrator she saw leave. I think one went out the front because one was on the first floor. I think the one on the second floor went out the back slider. And I think the one on the third floor came out the same way he came in, probably jumped off the dang balcony or something or crawled his butt down. But I don't I don't think it was one person moving through that house because you can't be on floors 3, 2, and 1 at the same exact time. And that's what Dylan and Bethany's statements say, that the perpetrators were doing different things at the same time on different floors. Oh, interesting. Writing down the rabbit hole. I have to take a look at that. Writing down the rabbit hole says in Dylan's room, if you look at the fan in Dylan's room, there's no cover over it. By the latest pics that came out, it looks like a black mask is over it. Interesting. I'll have to look. There's just so many tiny, tiny, tiny details. And if you miss one word, it could change how the whole story goes. Like their text messages, for instance. That was another thing I wanted to say. When Dylan texts Bethany and says, it's like a ski mask almost. It is like a ski mask almost, rather than it was like a ski mask almost. To me, reading it that way, I almost read that as the perp is still there. Like she doesn't know that the perp has left yet. Because if she did when she was texting that, she would have put, it was almost like a ski mask. Instead, she says, it is like a ski mask. I don't know. I look at those little details like that and try and get the most information I can from them. I don't know. I do just think that the stuff that came out of Dylan's room is very questionable. I just don't understand why they don't test any of this blood. They've got literally blood everywhere. Well, in the rooms and stuff, blood everywhere in the rooms from the crime scenes, but also in Dylan's room, also outside, also on the handrail. Also, like, how come none of this stuff was tested against people and looked into? It drives me nuts when I'm reading these ISP reports because it'll say, literally, it'll say, we got this lead, this, it'll say like 6 or 7 different leads or tips. And next to them, it'll say it wasn't followed up on because Brian Koberger was since been investigated. Brian Koberger, basically saying we don't need to look into any of these leads because Brian Koberger is the guy who did it. Like, my goodness. That's fine, but you've got a lot of blood that belongs to a male that didn't test positive for Brian Koberger's blood. So why would you not continue to look into it and see if you could at least get other people off the street that did this? Because it's very clear it wasn't done by one person. I personally think there were 3 people in there that night. That's what's being described to me. You've got other male blood in there and you're not testing it. Why? There's no way one person did this. You would think they would want to catch all of them. That's true, Red. Red says, my husband brought up a great point. When the cops were going up the stairs, ones with gloves were smearing anything that might have been there. Yeah. Yep. And then they don't have booties on their feet either. I mean, don't you think when they went in for the first time and saw Xana the way she was, everybody would have backed out and put on gloves, booties, hairnets. I mean, everything. And then went in. I realized they had to clear the scene, but you know what I mean? You can run out real quick and put that stuff on to not contaminate the scene. There's got to be a protocol for that, I would think. I don't know. All right, guys. I got to skedaddle and take Bronxy to the PARK. I hope everybody has a fabulous Friday. I'm going to post a poll on my channel. It might be tonight, it might be tomorrow, but I thought of an idea of doing one weekend day a month, whether it be Saturday or Sunday, and doing a breakfast with Bronx and getting on here to talk about all different crimes, everything that's in the news or things you want to talk about, and not necessarily about Idaho, but just any crime that's going on or any crime that you found interesting or that got you in, just anything wrapped around crime in general and not necessarily just about the IDAHO4 case. I was thinking of doing breakfast with Bronx either Saturday or Sunday, and I was going to make a poll. So if you guys could answer on the poll which day and time you would like to do that. Hi, Anna P. That would be great if you guys would be interested in something like that. Can you respond to the poll for me when I make it? Yes, I have heard about the Ellen Greenberg case. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about any cases that anybody wants to. I know most of the cases, mostly every case that's pretty much ever happened. So we can talk about any cases. It's just a thought, and I thought it would be fun. Maybe just one weekend in the morning, one day, either Saturday or Sunday in the morning, and you guys can pick the time, and we'll do that. So I'll post the poll probably later. And other than that, do something nice for yourself. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your entomals. And anybody who's in the US, have a wonderful 3-day weekend. We're the believers. We're the Bronxy B leavers because Bronx's middle name starts with a B. Bronxy B leavers. And if anybody is interested in a membership, we do have memberships. They are there and active now. And it is only $2.99 and will always only be $2.99. I'm getting some things together for some members only stuff. And I have some other stuff ready for giveaways for being a member and all kinds of stuff. So, yep, it's coming together. I've been looking into merch and stuff too. So it's coming together slowly but surely. So I'm going to go take Bronxy to the PARK. Check back either later today or tomorrow for the poll. Oh, thank you, Bianca. Bianca gifted another membership. That's amazing. That's so awesome. Yes, happy Labor Day weekend. Anybody who gets Monday off, enjoy it and do something nice for yourself, please. Thank you so much, Bianca and Carol. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Everybody be safe this weekend. Bye, guys.